Hi, everyone. So, one of our members asked a really good question in the community. So, I thought I would record an answer to the question because I think it's a really interesting question and it doesn't get asked very often, but it's a really important one. And the question was, if I'm going to remember it correctly, that how can you heal something if you don't know that it needs to be healed? Meaning that you don't have a memory of an emotional event or you don't have a memory of something, but it comes up in a healing session. And you may never have placed any importance on it, or you may not even remember an event. But in the course of a healing session, um, something may pop up, be noticed by the person who is offering healing services, and brings it to your attention. And you're like, hold on, I didn't even know that needed healing. So, this is a really good question because it happens quite a lot. And so, the thing with um, anything that you really want to heal has always got an emotional starting point. So that's the first thing that we have to recognize. So it's if we just understand that we know that there will always be an emotion, there will always be an event, there will always be um, something that is in the past that you may have not given any sort of importance to, you may have forgotten about, but it doesn't mean it doesn't need healing. And the reason for this is that the mind, one of its main functions of the mind is survival. It's to keep you safe, it's to keep you alive. So when you have an experience, when you experience an emotion that is very difficult, maybe quite intense, quite challenging, maybe there's a lot of confusion, you're not sure why this is happening. When your mind cannot process that, it tends to hold it somewhere until it can process it. Um, and that is usually in your subconscious or your unconscious. If it's pre-verbal, when you were really young and you hadn't really got language skills, so you couldn't even explain what it is you were feeling, then it's again, it is held. And where is it held? Well, it can be held in your subconscious, your unconscious. It can be held in the body physically, and it can be held in your energy field as well. And so you have an energy field that's outside of your body as well, and it can be stored there too. So when you come to a healing session and you say, help me with something, and then the healer might say, oh, but something happened when you were like 9, or something happened when you were like 4, and you're like, hey, I was 4, I don't remember anything of it. And it may not be, because all children when they're 0 to 7 are unconscious, more or less. It's only when you're 7 and upwards that you become conscious, and therefore you are more active in your thinking. So anything pre that is often held in your subconscious or your unconscious, and can even be sort of a trauma imprint if it's from conception, or sort of pre-birth, birth, and shortly after birth. So there's a lot of things that get held, and they get held because they're intense, and so you can't cope with it at the time because you're only small. It may be that you're really confused about it, you don't understand it, it gets held. And because you don't know what to do with it, it just gets stuck in your field, subconscious, body, all of those. So in order to sort of know it's there, that's usually because you've gone to a healing session or you've got some kind of therapy. And you won't know it's there. Why? Because your subconscious mind will hide it from you until you are ready, right? Why is it hiding it? Because it knows that you couldn't deal with it when you were younger. It assumes you still can't deal with it. So it kind of hides it from you. But it still has an effect on your life. The memory hasn't gone, the experience hasn't gone, but it hasn't been able to be processed. It hasn't been able to be resolved. And so your mind, thinking it's protecting you, holds it until it can be. And unless you ever go to a healing therapy session, you may never know that it's there. But it is there, and it will be influencing because it's unprocessed. So when you go to a healer and they say this is something that happened to you when you were 4, and you rack your brain and you say, I can't remember it, how do I even know it's there? It is there, but your body is trying, mind, body, spirit is trying to keep you a bit safe. And so it kind of goes, don't know what you're talking about. So that's when we kind of go and do a little bit of investigation and see if we can either remember it, and if we don't remember it, um, then we can still heal it. It's still possible to heal it. So how do we heal the things that we don't really know? Well, there are a lot of techniques that are actually really good for this kind of thing. So if you were in a talking therapy, or like you could go and do some hypnosis and it can go find that memory, or you can do past life work as well if you think it may be past life. So there's a lot of ways that you can go and actually look for that event. But if you don't want to look for the event, if you think, well, if it's in my subconscious because it's protecting me, maybe I don't want to know what it is, that's okay too. But the key thing is that so when it's in your subconscious, you don't deal with it at all because you don't know it's there. It's below your level of consciousness. You don't know it's there. When it comes up into your consciousness and now you know that there is something there, well, that's the first step. That's the first really good step to healing. So now you are aware there is something that is affecting you currently that is in the past. And obviously you think, well, it's affecting me in the present and I don't really like how it's affecting me. If I just clear that, then my present will be a lot better for me. So that's why you go searching for it. And so it's now in your awareness that there is something there. And we know that it's going to be emotional. If it wasn't emotional, if it could have been processed, it would have been, it wouldn't be held. So we know it's going to be emotional. And so this is where we are a bit brave and say, okay, I need to work with this. So I'm going to have to at least work with the emotion that is there. And so there are quite a few techniques that are really great for this. One is access consciousness. The other one is EFT. They're both really good for this because they are dealing with the emotion. So when we're in talk therapy, we're tending to sort of talk on about an idea. We're telling stories. We're reconnecting to our memories and stuff. And we're doing a lot of talking. But that's not necessarily clearing. Sometimes it really helps to process something, a memory. But really, if you don't know what it is, or even if you only know a little bit of what it is, you can just deal with the emotion without going into the story of it. And actually, it's kind of better sometimes if you just deal with the emotion and not the story. So with something like access consciousness, if you know the standard but very, very powerful access consciousness clearing statement, what you're doing is you kind of go to that age of whatever it is, or whatever it is that's even in the now that you're going to for healing with, and you bring up that emotion, you bring up that feeling, whatever it is, and you can kind of name it. And what does it feel like? What does it look like? Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? If you want to give it some, try and sort of connect with it. And once you've got that, the access consciousness healing statement is everything that is. So you don't even have to name it if you don't want to. You just say, everything that this is, are you willing to destroy and uncreate it all? And then you say the clearing sentence. So what you're doing is you're gathering up that feeling, you're gathering up that emotion and saying, I'm not even going to name it. Whatever that is, whatever this is that is underlying it, do I want to clear it? And then you do the clearing statement. So that's one really good technique. The other is EFT. Love and accept, the karate chop. You love and accept yourself anyway. You have a set up sentence. Even though I feel this way, I love and accept myself. Even though there's this thing going on in my life, I love and accept myself. So you had the set up statement. And then through this tapping, through the process of tapping, it tends to bring things out of the body, out of the subconscious, and brings it up into your consciousness. You then can see it for what it really is because you're having this honest conversation as you're tapping. And as this truth of how you're actually feeling comes up, you can then work through it and neutralize it, and then it clears out, and you can always tap in something positive. So those two are really, really great for this. The other way you could do it as well is through tuning forks, work with your energetic field. And so the furthest outside of your aura, you can't see my hand, but the furthest outside of your aura is from birth, pre-birth and birth. And then as you get closer to the body, it's your more recent experiences. And as you work with the tuning fork, you have a little thing that you tap, you have the tuning fork, you start with the outer range. You can literally feel the energetic vibrational difference when you hit an emotion or something that is still stuck in your field, an experience or emotion that is still stuck in it. Kind of vibrates in a different way. It's almost like you're fighting with it. And then you can kind of, I don't know if everyone works this way, but I can usually hear what the emotion is. I can hear what the child version of you was saying at that time. And then that gives a bit of a clue, say, oh, what happened when you were 6? And the person will say nothing. And I'm like, well, this is what I can hear. You're saying, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. And they go, oh, yes. And that triggers a memory. And they go, oh, yeah, at 6, this is what happened. Oh, yeah, at 7, this is what happened. And so you can walk through your whole energy field with a tuning fork. But you can do it by chakra as well. Every chakra and your through those ages, from pre-birth to now, and clear your field. Literally, you just you can use it, tuning forks, to clear it with sound. So that's another way you can do it. And this is the thing, right? So if you're really sensitive, you may well know that something is there, but you can't quite access it because it's hidden from you. But once you bring it into awareness, then you can work with it. I'm a big believer in, if you know something is there, then that's come up for a reason, and it's coming up for healing. So to work with a healer, or to work with self-healing and clear that for yourself. I have had a lot of experiences where people have said to me, oh, so-and-so once told me a long time ago that I had a past life where I died terribly and this is still hanging over me. And I was like, great, did they clear it for you? And they go, no, they just told me about it. But it's one thing to know it. So that's the first step, is the awareness. It comes out of your subconscious or unconscious, comes out of the energy field to be seen and dealt with. And then you have to do the dealing with part of it. So there will be people who are not sensitive and they say, I don't think there's anything there. I think I'm fine. They're not. They're just in denial. And because we all hold these things that we can't process, especially as children, our child minds aren't mature enough to deal with some things. Our child minds believe that there's something wrong with us rather than it's just a projection from someone else. So as a child, we often do pick up these things that just hang around, and they don't just hang around sort of quietly and just not doing anything. They do affect how we feel about the world, how we see the world, what we believe. Even if they were pre-verbal, they're still there, and they still have an effect. So when we clear them, we can just be free of the things that are kind of no longer relevant to us or important to us, and we can let go, surrender them to the universe and say, right, we don't really need this anymore. And these may be things that are keeping you stuck or holding you back from doing the things that you love, but you don't know they're there. So just because you don't know they're there doesn't mean they're not there. But also, you can heal them, even if you don't know anything about it, because the universe is kind of working for you. And I'll just end on this because I think it is an important thing to mention, is that when you start to do healing work, the universe knows what you're doing and your mind, body, spirit knows what you're doing. And it goes, brilliant. We're now ready to do a bit of healing. So you do a little bit of healing and then something else will come up. And most people go, oh no, I've just healed something and now something else has come up. But that's because they're all kind of entangled in together. They're kind of patterned in together. They're entwined in with other things. So we say, well, I've dealt with that. And then something else comes along and you're like, okay, I've got to heal this. And then you're like, oh no, but now something else has come up. Why am I having such bad luck? Why have I got so much healing to do? And it's not bad luck. It's not because of anything that's wrong. It's because the universe goes, oh, well, if you've healed that, do you want to heal this bit? And it gives you the breadcrumb to the next bit of healing. And then you say, oh, well, actually, this is attached very strongly to this. Are you able to do this bit of healing as well? And so it tends to come, we start with one thing and then suddenly it moves into something else. It moves into something else. It moves into something else. And people get a bit frustrated by that. But if we look at it as these things are all entwined, These aren't so necessarily separate events, because one event then might be a thought, and then you might have another event that reinforces that thought, and then it starts to become a belief, and then as it becomes a belief, it becomes harder to remove. So you've taken out one part and now the things that are attached to it have come up, so that you can heal that as well, and you can heal this bit as well. So don't be too frustrated if you think there was nothing wrong with me, I had nothing there, and suddenly all these things come up, and you're like, hold on, where has all this come from? It was always already there. It was all there already. And so all we're doing is uncovering it, seeing that it's there, recognizing it, allowing it some space because it's never been processed, it's never been given space before to be seen and acknowledged. Now, as an adult, you can look at that and say, oh, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that now. I have more life experience now. I can deal with that now. Yeah, we can process that, and that's fine. I can let go of that, which you couldn't do when you were younger. So now you're doing the work now, and it clears it out. So this is really important healing work always, and you don't have to know what it is, but you can still heal it.